Hello everyone, I am Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, which is a very important video by the way, we are going to cover a new bill which is going to replace the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, also popularly known as MNREGA Act, right? So what are the key changes that the government has envisaged? Let us cover them one by one in our today's video. And the notes that I will be using today, they are very important from your exams perspective, and hence you should go to this particular channel and download them. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So let us start our today's discussion, because the NDA government is planning to introduce Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission Gramin, popularly called as VBG Bill of 2025, and this will proposes to replace the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act of the year 2005. Now, what are the main features of this bill? The first main feature that you need to understand, this Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar Ajivika Mission Gramin Act is going to entirely replace the erstwhile Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So this is not an amendment. This is a new bill altogether which will replace the original MNREGA Act. Okay. Now let us start one by one the important essential features of this bill. First essential feature that you have to cover is the amount of days of work which is provided to the beneficiary of this scheme. If you remember MNREGA provided for at least 100 days of work to a rural household every year, and there were also provisions to add up to 50 days of extra work in some cases. What were those cases? First, in case of a scheduled tribe who is living in a forest area, who is not having any private property, they were entitled to 50 extra days of work. Similarly, if any drought or natural calamity, if and when they are declared by Ministry of Home Affairs in India, then also in those states 50 extra days of work were provided. So this is the kind of entitlement the beneficiaries had in the MNREGA Act. Now, what is going to happen in the VBG bill? This bill actually fixes 125 days of work, and there is no explicit provision to provide extra days of work beyond this fixed 125 days. So what is the change in this bill? It increases the statutory guarantee. Earlier it was minimum 100 days, now it is increased to 125 days. But it at the same time reduces the flexibility that it provided to states which were going to face any kind of natural calamity. So in that case, the flexibility of extra 50 days of work stands to be eliminated, right? So this is the first major change that this bill is going to bring. Now, the second major change is what is going to be controversial is how the funding of this scheme is introduced. First, in case of MNREGA, the wage bills of unskilled manual work, the entire wage bill was borne by the central government. On the other hand, other expenses like material expenses, administrative cost, they were shared between center and state government in a fixed pattern. Usually it was 75% for central government and 25% for the state government, right? Now let us understand what is going to happen in the new bill. In the new bill, the entire funding will be shared between central and state governments in a predefined ratio. So much so that the entire unskilled wage work bill, which was earlier borne by central government, this is now going to be even shared between central and state government. So this indicates some major fiscal shifts in the direction of state, so much so that it increases the financial burden that the states are going to face, because they'll also have to share the unskilled manual wage work bill, which was earlier entirely borne by the central government. So this is the change number 2, which according to me is going to be more controversial, because state governments is going to feel the financial pressure of this change. Now, the third change is the kind of allocation which is provided in this scheme. If you remember, MNREGA was called as an open-ended scheme which was based on demand for work. So how this demand for work resulted into allocations from the central government, let us understand this. Now, every year, the labor budget was submitted by the respective state governments to the Union Ministry of Rural Development, who is the nodal authority of the MNREGA Act, right? So this was a demand-driven labor budget which was provided to the union government, and accordingly, union government made allocations to the state governments. So after the end of the year, if the amount of spending that was done by the state governments were more than the earlier demand, it used to lead to more funding which was done from the central government. Right, so that is why it was called as an open-ended scheme. If the demand of the work is more money will be sent by the central government. If the demand is less money will be sent by the central government. Right, now how it is changed in the recent bill. Now in the recent bill, which is going to be introduced soon in the floor of the house, the government has decided to make normative allocations. Right, so government, a fixed amount of money, the central government will provide it to the state governments respective on their respective allocations. But beyond this, if the if the state governments end up spending more amount of money, the entire excess amount of money that the state governments are spending, that has to be borne by the state governments, right? So this essentially caps the amount of allocation which will be done by the central government, and therefore this shift from the demand driven model to allocation driven model, it reduces the flexibility that it was provided to the state of Indian Union earlier, right? So this is the third major change. Now let us understand the fourth major change. Earlier, whenever MNREGA scheme was applicable throughout the year, farmers in India had a very major complaint. They used to say that whenever they required agricultural labor for sowing or harvest seasons, they were not able to find the laborers because laborers were employed in the MNREGA scheme. Now the central government has decided to mandatorily pause the scheme for multiple times in a year, all of them adding to as most as 60 days. So effectively, the scheme will be paused in a year for as many as 60 days. Now, who's going to decide when to pause the scheme? It is the state government who will notify season-wise and area-specific pauses. Now, what this does, it provides more flexibility to the state governments to cater to the agricultural harvest season, because pausing the scheme would ensure higher abundance of labor for the agricultural work. But on the other hand, this provides a shorter effective windows for people to get work in the new scheme, which is a very replacement of the MNREGA scheme, right? So this practically reduces the access period for the beneficiaries. On the other hand, it decentralizes this planning to state departments, whether they will be able to pause in which area and in which time of the year. Okay. Now the last but not the least, the changes that has been made is in the wage payment deadline, right? Now earlier, the wages that were notified under MNREGA every year, and they were revised every year due to the CPI, rural laborer, agricultural labor, right? So this was how the scheme was revised every year. Now the payment of the wage, which was to be mandated within 15 days earlier, and if it surpassed the period of 15 years, there was a provision for compensation in the MNREGA. But now in this year, in the VBG bill, what is going to happen, that the payments rather will be preferred to make weekly, and it will in any case not be stretched beyond a deadline of a fortnight, that is a fortnight of 15 days. If it is in any case extends the period of the fortnight, then the penalty rate or the delay compensation that are provided, it is same as before. So the wage rate has not changes, the way it is revised is not going to change, but what is going to change is how the payments are going to be made. Earlier they were made in once every 15 days, now they will be made in a form of weekly payment, which advances the period of the payment and it brings good news to the beneficiaries, right? So this is how the 5 important changes to the new bill, which essentially replaces MNREGA, is what we have discussed in our today's discussion. Now, before solving a practice question, I need to tell you something very important. This important thing that I wanted to announce is relating to resolution plus batches. What we just discussed now is a part of economy. Now, you need to understand in UPSC, there are important subjects also: polity, history, geography, economy, internal security, international relations. All of them are covered in a resolution plus batches, and these batches are offered separately for students who are looking to give exams in 2027, as well as students who are looking to give exams in 2028. What you need to understand, right now the batches have started for December and you're being offered this course at a very cost effective rate, but if you delay, you're going to end up paying higher amount of money. And additionally, if you use this code ATS Live, you're going to get as much as 7,000 rupees discount on all the courses, resolution plus batches for either year or even for optional batches. So please do remember that. Get as much discount as possible, save as much money as possible, and do not forget to take admission in resolution plus batches. Now there's a practice question which I want each and every one of you to solve. You can solve this practice question and tell me the correct answer in the comment section. The ones who answer it correctly would get a thumbs up from my side. And this is all for today's discussion. And in case if you want to download the notes, you can go to this particular Telegram channel known as ATS Live. Okay. So this is all for today's. Please have a very good night. We'll see each other again tomorrow.